Do you think I have to start this lesson with the same thing? Either way, let's get into it. Before we start, you better have done all your homework leading up to this, or two things are gonna happen. First, I'm gonna be very disappointed in you, and nobody wants that. Second, none of this is really gonna mean anything because you haven't started to build the foundations. If your brain isn't being programmed and wired the right way, none of the new information is going to benefit from that. And so you are literally wasting time. You might as well play video games instead of watching this video. I'm gonna keep reminding you, and I have every video, so keep up on the homework. If you didn't watch these in order, go back and figure out what you're supposed to do after each lesson. Again, they're the action steps, and I'm gonna give you some with this lesson as well. But today, we're gonna talk about the mind of the unbreakable. You can be the most disciplined, focused, and intelligent person in the world. But if you crumble under pressure and if you let failure break you, you're not gonna get anywhere. Because no matter how hard you work or how smart you are, you will get hit, you will fail, you will face rejection, you will experience setbacks. But the people who win, they don't just survive the setbacks. They use them to fuel the next move. How many times have you bounced out of a relationship and then grinded at the gym or accomplished something crazy in business or life because of the motivation you now have to prove them wrong or to better yourself the way you never were? The greatest curses can be our greatest gifts. As always, I'm going to tell you a story. There once was a fighter who never lost. Not because he was the strongest or biggest guy, but because he was the hardest to break mentally. Every time he got hit, he smiled like a maniac. He knew that every punch thrown at him was a little bit of energy his opponent lost, and he saw it as hurting them and not him. He trained his mind to see the pain as proof that he was still in the fight and still competing to win. While other fighters feared taking hits, he embraced them for that reason, and he was excited to be hit, knowing that his opponent was getting a little bit weaker every time. He flipped the pain on his heels and found a way to wire that as benefiting him. And guess how much more enjoyable in his mind the fight was? Exponentially. Here's why most people break under pressure. Most people think failure is a stop sign, when in reality it's just a test. The universe is always asking you questions. It's that little voice in your head. How bad do you actually want this? Are you really about this life? Are you gonna fold when it gets hard? And the only way to prove yourself is to keep moving when things go wrong. Most people don't fail because they aren't capable. They fail because they simply throw in the towel way earlier than they should. Let's get into the 3-step process to handle these, to bounce back from setbacks like the elite. And after, I'll give you the action steps. First, we need to reframe failure. Most people take failure as a personal attack. You know what? Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm just not meant to win at this. But high-level executors know that you really can't fail at anything if you do it long enough. They see failure for what it really is. Data on their next step. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before the light bulb, and he used those as data points, and that was his primary objection when people called him crazy. A failed launch was just data on what didn't work. A rejected pitch was just data on how to improve the pitch and messaging for next time. A bad investment is just data on what to do and put your money in next time differently. The only real failure is not learning from your mistakes. I believe this is 100% true. If you look at your setback and ask, what is this trying to teach me? I don't think there's a reason you could ever fail. If you're actually doing it enough, nothing will really stop you. And I've seen people even get close to this standard, never really fail. It's so hard to do this in practice 100% of the time. So even if you're just moderately okay with it, you're gonna see a crazy level of improvement in every realm of your life. Tip 2, the 3-day rule. Process, adapt, move forward. When something goes wrong, people dwell on it for weeks, months, or sometimes even years. I mean, think about breakups and how long those people stay on our minds for years after. It's wasted energy, and I know you know it. Here's the 3-day rule. Sometimes this can obviously range longer, but with every setback, I would at least encourage you to do 3 days. Day 1 is feeling it. Like the movie, right? Cry it out, just be human. Feel the full range of emotions. Take 24 hours to process this setback. Be pissed off, be frustrated, but don't act emotionally. Don't take it out on someone. Don't eat yourself to sleep. Day 2 analyze. The next 24 hours, what actually went wrong? Where did you miscalculate? What was in your control? Day 3, adjust and execute. Take what you learned and find a way to apply it moving forward. No more overthinking, no more dwelling, just action-based steps. Again, at least 72 hours, but you can stretch it longer if needed. The bigger the emotional setback or event, the longer you could probably stretch it. The faster you process setbacks, the faster you are going to bounce back, and therefore the faster you'll achieve actual success learning from the feedback. Because the faster you can patch these bugs, the faster you can rerun your system, and when you encounter the problem again, you can actually succeed this time. But somebody else who's still dwelling on the problem and feeling emotional won't take action. Again, women tend to be more emotional than men, and that's just the fact of how it is. And for that reason, it's good and bad. Women might spend longer on the emotional stage of it, but men might not spend long enough. And so men might have to repeat the process when women might just spend longer, but still actually get to the finish line. Just know how you tend to react to these problems, because it'll depend on how you typically react, and adjust accordingly. Part 3, build mental calluses. Train your mind for pain. Every setback, every failure is a rep for your mind in the gym. Think about it. The more you experience pressure, objections, rejections, the more you're going to succeed more in the future, because you don't get fazed by it. Getting thrown off and feeling that emotional anxiety in our heads plays a huge part in whether or not we succeed or fail. You know, the stadium pulse in the football game, right? Where you can just feel the crowd just shouting at you and it gets in your head. That can actually throw people off significantly in a meeting or public presentation or out on a date. And this is a simple truth. You should know this. And I learned this in basic training very well. The more you put yourself in high stress situations, the more comfortable you get under pressure. I am putting you in the position where you don't have a choice but to do the homework and then move forward, because you need to feel the pressure of having to get this done if you actually want to push through. I'm trying to help get you accustomed to this. Again, if you're already going to the gym or already putting yourself under some sort of stress, then you are doing things right. And you already have an advantage going into this. The more you lean into discomfort, the more it affects you. If you accept discomfort as just a feeling like sadness or guilt or anxiety or joy, or any of the just normal feelings that we know cycle through and fade away, then it can actually really not matter to us. But a lot of other people will see discomfort and never even try to experience it, when it's just a fact of life. Most people run from pain. You need to run toward it, because the truth is, the game never gets easier. You never get less sales calls when the C-suite executives are calling you, when the clients back out, when the project is failing and you're on vacation in the Maldives. All of these people with all the money have the biggest problems. You just don't see them because they're strong enough to not show them. You're having a tiny problem like a bad brake on a car, and you're making it your entire life ordeal. No wonder you're never going to solve those higher level problems. You need to stop reacting at such a high level to small issues. Women might do this more because they tend to be more emotional, and so that can seep out a little bit more. But again, men might not be good at recognizing these in general a lot of times. So again, just understand how much you make a big deal out of this or not. Let's summarize. Pain is guaranteed. Stress is guaranteed. Failure is also guaranteed, and understand that one. But breaking is optional. If you can handle pressure, you're gonna dominate. If you can take failure and analyze it and turn it into a power next time, you will always win. And if you refuse to break in the boxing ring, right, of life, nothing will stop you next time. And nobody will want to challenge you. You'll have success to yourself. You don't get stronger by avoiding failure. You learn this at the gym from a young age. It's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. These are your action steps. First, think of your last major failure. Big financial problem, relationship, loss of a loved one, whatever it's gonna be. Instead of just the loss, what do you think was the lesson behind it, if you could analyze it? A lot of people do this spiritually, right? They'll link it to a higher power. What was God trying to tell me? If you're not as religious, just see it as, what is the universe trying to tell me about what's going on? What can be the message behind this? And I think a lot of times spirituality becomes our excuse to look for meaning in things. So what do you think was the lesson behind this event? And if it doesn't seem apparent, maybe just think a little bit longer and pull something out of it. Again, I'll give you one. And I did this over the 3-phase approach I talked about. Obviously, when I got out of a relationship, I was pretty emotional at first. But then thinking about it, I realized I made the situation a lot about me. I think I thought about this person so much because I wanted to make sure that the breakup didn't affect them. And so I wanted to make sure that I didn't look bad to this other person when I know that we broke up, so I'm inherently going to. And so I wanted it to be about me and my status and how I looked, and I was feeling selfish. But I thought I cared so much about this other person because I wanted them back, when in reality, I was really just faced with my own selfishness, and I had to get over that. Only then I could make peace with this breakup, because now it wasn't about them, it was about the core issue, which was me. But I didn't figure that out until first I was emotional about it, and then I analyzed why I was emotional and what the actual emotion was, not the disguised one that most people will think it is. If you need to, talk with somebody trusted. This is why people pay for therapy. Write this stuff down. Figure out what the actual emotion is. So again, what was the lesson behind the setback that you identified? With this last major failure, move into step 2. Apply the 3-day rule. The next time a glimpse of this setback happens in the future, have a plan. First, allow yourself to be emotional. It doesn't exactly have to be 24 hours, but give yourself a window to feel emotional about it, even if you don't think you have to be that person. Emotional doesn't mean crying yourself to sleep. It can mean simply feeling frustrated and understanding that you are frustrated. You don't have to go punch a wall, but understand what emotion you're going to be feeling most likely. Next, analyze why you think that's the proper emotion and why your body's feeding you that emotion in that particular situation. Why is anger the best programmed emotion for your body to give you in this situation? And what do you think is it really telling you about this situation and how you're processing it? Finally, I want you to expose yourself to a similar sort of discomfort on purpose. If it's talking to people or connecting in relationships, maybe try talking to some strangers. Go out to a bar and try sparking a conversation with somebody interesting. Seeing if you can actually invest in listening. Whatever the skill is, understand that you're giving yourself a trial period to be better. I want you to focus primarily on the discomfort. Why do you feel uncomfortable in this situation? A lot of times the answer is going to be because you know that there's a high likelihood of it going wrong. And the question you need to ask is, if this goes equally as wrong as it has in the past, are you going to be equally as discomforted? Or now that you know how to handle it, can you handle it better? Do you know all the possible responses you could exhibit in this case? Pick the best one and understand that this is now going to be your plan of attack to change the situation and potentially change the outcome. And that is how the successful rewire their subconscious to continue to be successful. This is going to take a lot of work. It's going to be deep level mindset training. But if you do this enough with the most impactful stressors in your life, you're going to see change, and you're going to excel at a much rapid pace than you ever thought was possible. There's a good chance you're going to need help with this too. So if you're in the community, be responsive in the chats and ask people for advice and let them know how you're dealing with certain emotions and what you might want to say about them, because people will want to hear your example as well. Now that you know how to handle setbacks, there's really only one thing left: taking action. Being the smiling boxer we are in the ring, as hard as that might be, taking more action leads to more setbacks, which leads to more emotions, more lessons learned, and more corrections to possibly route us towards success. Every failure is feedback, remember? So action is how we get more feedback. You just have to be ready to not see failure as the output. Most people don't fail because they don't know what to do, but because they don't do it fast enough and with enough purpose. In the next lesson, we're gonna start wrapping this up, and I'm gonna show you how to make some of the most important things happen. Making decisions like the high-level executive that you are soon to become. How to execute at an insane speed, and how to stop overthinking, because in this game, speed is everything. And once we conquer that, there's nothing stopping you from continuing and getting started on your financial success journey. It's time to move fast and dominate. I'll see you in the next lesson.